responsible people like Mark Rober, MKBHD, iJustine, me, and tons of other awesome, uncontroversial YouTubers.
Are you kidding? Is this a joke? I honestly cannot tell if they're being serious about this. Well, anyway, it's a well-known fact that PewDiePie is a controversial figure on YouTube. Every couple months, there seems to be a new outrage tied to his name, and every time it ends in the same way. PewDiePie issues some kind of apology, which he has done so many times that he prides himself on it, I guess, and everything just continues. Business as usual. I have no idea what the general opinion on PewDiePie is in my core audience, but I imagine it's probably fairly positive. For those people, allow me to issue a trigger warning. I'm going to harshly criticize PewDiePie in this video. I know that might be upsetting to some people, but I urge you to honestly consider my arguments before coming to a conclusion. Thank you. So, you may know about the latest controversy concerning PewDiePie when he misgendered this transgender girl on Dr. Phil. This transgression caused great outrage on Twitter, with people calling him transphobic and a hateful bigot and all manner of mean things because of it. Now, is PewDiePie actually transphobic? Well, no, it doesn't seem that way to me. You can argue all day about whether or not PewDiePie is a transphobe and never come to a definitive conclusion, but to me it just doesn't seem to be the case. Besides, it's not like PewDiePie has a history with being transphobic the same way he does with, and forgive me for using the N-word here, Nazis. We'll get into that later though. For now I want to focus on this specific case independently, because this instance invalidates every single excuse people usually come up with to defend him. Let's have a look at his response.
Go fuck yourself.
By the time I saw this response for the first time, I hadn't actually seen the Dr. Phil video yet, because I think reaction videos are the lowest form of content on this site. But when I did see this response, I decided to watch it anyway, to get some context. The first thing that struck me is that her gender was actually mentioned in the video on several occasions, which means that when PewDiePie says,
and she wasn't mentioned as she anywhere by anyone in the video,
he's bullshitting. He just made up an excuse that's demonstrably false in order to deflect the blame. The thing about this that I really want to stress is that he said this in a news video well after the controversy broke out. He really should have known that it was actually specified in that video. Evidently, he did not check his claim before going on Pew News about it. PewDiePie seems to think he did no wrong, which, if we consider this case in a vacuum, I don't even disagree with, but the least he could do is acknowledge his mistake instead of making up an excuse that's demonstrably false. In the end, he chose not to apologize and even berate his critics. The reason all of this is important is because, like I alluded to earlier, his entire response single-handedly invalidates every single excuse his fans usually come up with to defend him. There's this tweet that was going around which shows PewDiePie's response, which is just blatantly stolen, but whatever. And when I saw it in my timeline, I decided to post a screenshot proving his aforementioned excuse wrong. You could probably guess what happened next. Yeah, a bunch of people came to his defense, and it gave me a pretty good insight in the kinds of arguments his fans typically use. So let's go through them one by one. Argument number 1. He simply missed it. Well, yeah, no shit. He obviously did miss it. However, I don't think that absolves him from responsibility. To clarify, I don't necessarily blame him for missing it the first time. But if you're telling me that he didn't think to check whether her gender was actually mentioned after so many people got upset about it before announcing it on his news show that it wasn't, is beyond stupid. Argument number 2. He apologized though. I'm not sure what kind of cognitive disease you must have in order to come to this conclusion, but there were actually several people who came up with this brain-dead argument. PewDiePie literally outright says that he isn't going to apologize anymore and that his detractors can go fuck themselves. If that counts as an apology in your mind, you belong in a mental institute. Argument number 3. People are overreacting. You know, maybe they are. I don't think it's at all productive to call PewDiePie a transphobe over something like this. Especially since he doesn't actually have a history with transphobia that I'm aware of. Because all it does is shut down any productive discussion. And that's exactly what we saw in his response too. He made fun of the people who would argue that he should be more responsible because he was fed up with this outrage. Which was an argument he actually engaged with previously. However, that doesn't mean he is in the right to dismiss it. Yeah, people may have overreacted, but that doesn't mean they don't still have a point. Argument number 4. LOL anime PFP. Just cut that. It's kind of sad that PewDiePie is just perpetuating more bigotry after being accused of perpetuating bigotry. Bwah, bwah. And that is why PewDiePie has become indefensible in my eyes. You simply cannot defend him in good faith. And it's after I came to this conclusion that I started to view his past Nazi-related controversies in a different light too. I mean, it's always PewDiePie who's at the center of attention. Every single time. Of course, part of that is probably because he is the biggest YouTuber, so of course he's going to catch attention. But it's undeniable that he has had significantly more fuck-ups than any other YouTuber. I mean, you never hear about Jacksepticeye accidentally dog whistling to the Nazis. Not once. And this leads me to believe that all his previous apology videos weren't really a way for him to take responsibility and to do better in the future, but to just get everyone off his back. And now that it doesn't seem to work anymore, he's just given up on apologizing altogether. I mean, why else would he have this weird sense of pride in his apology videos?
If you take responsibility, then that's admitting that you're wrong. And doing that, that's just impossible. Never admit that you were wrong!
Okay, so allow me to posit a simple question, and I want you to consider this honestly, alright? Here we go. Is it really that strange that some people think PewDiePie allies himself to Nazis after having people on Fiverr write "Death to all Jews" on a sign and giving a shout out to ER, someone who openly admits to dog whistling to Nazis, and hosting Ben fucking Shapiro on his channel, who is a far-right political commentator who promotes fascist ideologies, and after retracting his donation to the ADL, which was the biggest flop his 100 million subscriber special could ever conceivably have been, and then wearing a symbol that looks identical to the Iron Cross in his subsequent apology video. Is that really that strange? That some people are suspicious of that? All of these instances, on their own, could be excused. People make mistakes after all. But when you fuck up so many times, consistently, over the span of the last couple years, in a way that always seems to play into the hands of Nazis every single time, I don't think it's reasonable to keep giving him the benefit of the doubt. Especially since now he seems to have set the precedent of not even taking the slightest amount of responsibility in the form of an apology, or even admitting fault in the first place. I mean, you have to wonder why the Daily Stormer chose to rally behind PewDiePie instead of, you know, anyone else. The reason why so many people take issue with this is because Nazis are using PewDiePie as a means to make them look cool and harmless, when they're really not. These are not small mistakes. It would be easy for PewDiePie to prevent getting into these situations if he just paid the slightest bit of attention, like everybody else seems to do. Instead, he chooses not to do that, because apparently he can do no wrong, and his critics are just being unreasonable at every turn. And you know what? Sometimes they are unreasonable, but that's not an excuse to ignore them outright. I want to believe PewDiePie is a reasonable guy, but in order to regain his credibility, he has to make a concerted effort to distance himself from the neo-Nazis who are so endeared to him, and seriously think about the way he presents himself online. It's not like none of the examples I gave couldn't have been prevented. They were edited videos that were uploaded deliberately. Right now, PewDiePie is just behaving like a useful idiot for far-right ideologies. And that's that. I imagine I've probably upset some people with this video, so do feel free to leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and maybe we can have a little discussion. Have a nice day.
I'm a Nazi.